athletes crossing the finish line right there. Another couple hand-in-hand guys are looking good. So athletes, if you're looking for water, you want to keep on heading back towards the white tent. Keep walking back towards that.